I don't know why in college football we can't have nice things or good ideas without terrible ideas.
You are Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin, and thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day and your daily source to stay up to date with the biggest stories in this, the greatest and craziest sport on planet Earth. The NCAA needs to chill out on Baylor. Who are the best quarterbacks in the class of 2026? That is all on today's show, which is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Kenton Gibbs of Locked On ACC is here because apparently, as we learned before I hit record, we don't see eye to eye on this particular matter. So a couple of proposals, Kenton, that have been floated out there for the Big Ten and SEC that are, driving the boat here, captaining the ship, I should say, with regards to the college football playoff. And there's the 16-team playoff that is likely to arrive in 2026, which is an abject disaster of an idea for the sport. But, oh well, that's the way we're always going. Then there's a good idea, though, and this is why I say every time a good idea pops up, it has to be supplemented with a bad idea. So you take a good idea, such as in 2025 for a 12-team playoff, we're going to have the playoff seeds just be a one-to-one copy of the College Football Playoff Committee's rankings and not do any of this conference champion automatic buys nonsense that we had last year that turned the whole thing into a seeding fiasco. That's a good idea, but then on the back of it we go, let's give the Big Ten and SEC 4 automatic bids each starting in 2026. So do you like either of those ideas? And if so, please explain why.
I hate both of them. I hate both of them to my core. Let me explain to you why, and I'm going to work from the latter and go to the former afterwards. Let's start with the seeding 1 through 12 or 1 through however many based on the playoff committee's ranking. The playoff committee's rankings are done by humans. Even if we argue, well, they're not completely done by humans, and there's a part of it that the computers weigh in and they factor in what the computer said and all that. Even the computers, because there is a such thing, because guys like you and me need to get paid year round, the computers are flawed. What does that mean? I mean that they come in with a perceived strength of schedule, right? How do you determine strength of schedule, Spencer? How's it determined?
Well, there's a computer metric that calculates it, but I mean, I've got my own strength of schedule metric. Spencer's scale is the one that I prefer, personally.
And Spencer's scale is the ultimate scale. We all know that. That's why you're the host of Locked On College Football. But when you think about the computers do it by who has the most ranked wins, who has wins over teams ranked being X, Y, and Z. The problem with that is teams are being ranked coming into the season based off of what? In the words of SEC legend Matthew McConaughey, it's a weasel, it's a wazoo, it's a fugazi, it's a fugazi. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist.
Fairy dust.
If you look at Florida State last year, they came into the season as a top 10 ranked team. Them boys put up a tour date, 2-10.
Okay.
What are we? What?
Okay. Well, that was that. They were the worst preseason top 10 team in the history of college football. That is statistically borne out.
But here's what's also statistically borne out. Every year, one team that starts in the top 10 finishes outside of the top 25. That happens every year. So what does that mean? The teams that beat those top 10 teams that end up outside the top 25 later in the season, those teams get a boost for you beat a top 10 team. That's how it's weighted. Whether or not that team was actually top 10, that is what the computers take into account. You beat this team when they were ranked 10. And that win is equivalent to a team beating a team that was ranked number 10 in week 8. It's the exact same thing to the computer.
Are you sure? Because I can't imagine Georgia Tech was given credit for a top 10 win when they beat a team in Florida State that wound up 2-10. I thought it was assessed based on how many wins you have over current ranked teams by the time the regular season and conference championships have actually come to a close, because that's where I want to go for my assessment. And I don't think all of those rankings are always correct. I mean, Missouri's been in the top 25 way too much over the last couple of years.
And that is my point exactly. I'm pretty sure it does assess as to where it is now, but either way you cut it or slice it, there will be teams that end up with inflated senses of where they are or who they should be based on not playing any competition or something along those lines. Again, I'm for beat who's in front of you. Who did the teams in front of you beat? Who did they beat? And then we can measure out rather, hey, this is what a top team is or is not. What I am not for is, strength of schedule. This conference is better than this conference due to strength of schedule. How do you determine that strength?
That's what the non-conference games are for, which is why I have long said, Ken, one of my biggest gripes with college football, predating NIL, the portal, and realignment, which have certainly risen towards the top of that list. But frankly, I'd put NIL and the portal below scheduling because the way this sport does scheduling is so backwards, makes no sense, completely illogical. I do not care for it. I wish there was a centralized body that would give us that, but it's one of the reasons why I pay so much attention to the non-conference slate, or why I will talk all throughout the summer about some of the biggest non-conference games out there and why those outcomes stick in my head, because I looked at the SEC last year and said, wait, this is still a good conference, but this is not the SEC of old. I watched them go out and not perform in the way that they are, used to in the Southeastern Conference in the non-conference slate. And by the way, I think that did factor into the committee's decision. Clearly, they left out the 9-3 SEC teams, which they should have.
Absolutely. But this is what I'm saying. If you were to give the seeding based on, hey, I'm ranking you here, I'm ranking you there via the humans, we will see a bunch of teams who are undeserving of home field advantages get them. We will see that. We will see that, as opposed to, again, I'm a big believer of, if you beat who's in front of you, you deserve home field. And if you are the better team, if you are the superior team in the way that many conferences say they are, okay, fine. Go ahead and show it. Go on the road and show it, because you were the third or fourth best team in your conference. This was the first best team. You lost 3 games. This team lost 1, maybe none. You should have to go prove, hey, even if I believe that team was playing the Island of Misfit Toys University, they're still FBS. They still played some semblance of a Power 4 team somewhere along the way. And guess what? They won that game. So at that point in time, to me, again, I'm a big believer in leave the automatic bids for conference champions, and all of the at-larges and whatnot, let them figure it out amongst the seeds. Let them figure that out. I'm fine with that. But I don't want to take away the benefit of winning a conference championship.
I don't think the benefit gets removed. I'm fine with an automatic bid. I'm opposed to the automatic buy, because what you would have had last year if you didn't have the automatic buy system is the 4 teams based on the committee's rankings post-conference championship weekend that would have gotten the 4 buys, and I think there should be a home playoff game associated with that, but that's a whole other conversation. It would have been Oregon, the Big Ten champ, Georgia, the SEC champ, Texas, the SEC runner-up, and Penn State, the Big Ten runner-up. Who's objecting to those teams being the top 4? But they weren't treated that way. And Oregon is the number 1 seed, by the way, for their first game, played the number 6 seed Ohio State, whereas the number 5 seed Texas, for their first game, played the number 12 seed Arizona State. That's why I think the reseeding is a good idea, but then expanding this playoff to 16 teams is just a mess.
But the 5 to 12, that is a game where you are automatically playing to get to the next round. That 6 seed or that Oregon team that's playing the 6 seed, they had a week off. They had a week of rest, as opposed to having to go out there and play somebody and potentially being eliminated in game 1. So to me, I'm saying, hey, you won. Your benefit, your bonus is you get a week off. That is your benefit out of that. And I'll tell you what, as far as expanding it to 16, I don't have a huge problem with that. However, I do have a problem with the guaranteed spots that we're talking about right now, as far as the SEC and Big Ten getting 4 each guaranteed. You are not going to tell me that we're not going to run into the very obvious problems of the 4th best SEC or Big Ten teams being absolute dog water within a year or two. This is not something people screamed up and down. People screamed from the high heavens. Indiana didn't belong last year. People screamed that. And Indiana was a team that, again, they beat who was in front of them. I give Indiana their credit. They didn't even have the largest or most embarrassing loss in the first round.
They actually had the smallest margin of defeat of any team in the first round.
And that is my point exactly of why I'm saying, at the end of the day, I don't think that anybody should be guaranteed 4 slots. And then you talk about 3 at-large bids as well. I'm fine with the 3 at-large bids. I think there should be more, but I'm fine with the 3 at-large bids. But if you're going to leave it at 3, it should be across the Power 4. Everybody gets 3 and rock out like that. Or even give an extra bid to the group of 6. But again, I don't like this entitlement of we're guaranteed 4 each because we're carrying the bills or we're paying the way of all the da-da-da. Listen, at the end of the day, I'm a big proponent of line it the hell up. If you think you're better, line it up and prove it. Line it up and show it, and it should matter. The results on the field should matter, not some guarantee. Well, you were in the right conference and you had yourself a decent season, so congratulations, you're going to the playoff, as opposed to a team that is fighting for their life, that is scrapping, that is doing an absolutely phenomenal job from the G6 that's like, oh, well, you're not the top rated, so you're probably not going to get in. Oh,
yeah.
Well, yeah, one of the 4, the 4th best Big Ten and SEC team took your spot. Stop it. Last year, who would have been the 4th best SEC team?
Alabama.
You're not going to tell me.
Alabama, with a loss to Vanderbilt, would have automatically been in the playoff last year.
Exactly. You're not going to tell me. And Grandma, I know I'm going to get a call about this. My grandmother is a very big Crimson Tide fan. Granny, you know I love you. You know I love you. I hate to do this to your boy. You can't tell me you put up 3 points against Oklahoma, a team that Navy ran all over, and we're going to sit up here and say, oh, yeah, you belong in the playoff. Knock it off. Knock it off. The numbers on the side of your helmet don't mean nothing. Saban ain't walking through that door. Bear Bryant ain't walking through that door. Derrick Henry ain't walking through that door. You are who you are and what you put on the field that particular year. And I don't believe that any conference has a claim to every year our 4th best team will be better than anything the rest of you are putting out. Stop.
Yeah. That's where we agree. We'll end with that nice sentiment of agreement there. Kenton Gibb,
so
Locked
you're
On
going to
ACC.
make me apologize to my granny, and then you go, I see what you do. You talk about Discord defender. You see what he doing, granny. You see what he doing.
Yeah. The NCAA, like the Big Ten and SEC, needs to chill the heck out. First, this episode brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing like the NBA playoffs. The intensity, the buzzer beaters, the fans losing their minds. It's the kind of atmosphere you want to experience live. And this year's matchups are already delivering. If you want in, Game Time makes it fast and easy to get seats, even for the biggest playoff games. Prices on the app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off, and they've got killer last-minute deals, panoramic seat views, no surprise fees. Game Time is a total game changer. I have used this to go to a sporting event. I've used it to go to a comedy show, and the process was great. I knew exactly what to expect because I got in there. I looked at my seat view and thought, yeah, that's what I want. Ooh, and I know exactly what the price is because I turn in the all-in pricing feature, and I get tagged with surprise fees at checkout. That's a little thing. It sounds like a little thing, but it's actually a big thing. And the process was great. So you can get everything that you want to go to over there with Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. The NCAA is like red pen on a test. If you are seeing it, hearing from it, or noticing it in your life, something bad is probably happening. That is the situation down at Baylor. Cam Stuart of Locked On Baylor is here to discuss the Ashtyn Hawkins situation. Would you like to just explain it for the people that aren't aware of this complete insanity, Cameron?
Yeah, I like the way you put it with the NCAA, though. That felt like very... like you're on some fine stuff, Rothstein stuff there, like the red pen, the NCAA. So Ashtyn Hawkins comes in last year, going into the 2024 season. He's got 1 year of eligibility left. Okay, he had played junior college, he had played at Texas State, so he comes in with 1 year of eligibility left. Makes the most of it. I thought had a pretty good year for Baylor last year, and then early in 2025, he gets the JUCO waiver, like Diego Pavia did. Gets the waiver to come back for 1 more year. And then kind of out of nowhere. Now, this had been building for like a week or so, but out of nowhere, we get the news on May 13th that he no longer has eligibility for 2025. After everything, Spencer, after the combine, the pro days, after the draft, they tell him, actually, we changed our mind. You're not eligible anymore. So now this throws, what is a great Baylor offense into a bit of flux here. I mean, this was their second leading receiver in 2024. And as of right now, he doesn't have eligibility. Now, Baylor is going to fight that, and I feel pretty good about their chances.
Well, I hope so, but allow me to throw this one at you.
Please.
I felt pretty good about his chances to play another year when the NCAA told him he could play another year and went through spring football. I felt pretty good at that point that Ashtyn Hawkins would be a part of this Baylor offense. I felt pretty good he had another season of college football in him. So was an explanation even given by the NCAA, or did they just say, nope, screw you, man, tough luck?
No explanation that any of us have heard. Now,
that's incredible. That's just incredible.
And there is something to be said. Like, we don't know. I don't know. It's not like Ashtyn Hawkins got arrested or anything. I don't know his academic eligibility. Maybe that's in question. I doubt it. But that's the big thing here is like, what has changed? What has changed from January to now? From all we know, nothing has changed in Ashtyn Hawkins' situation. Nothing has changed in the NCAA situation. Pavi's going to play this year. Haven't heard anything about that, and he should. He's been granted that. So I don't know where this is coming from. And so Baylor is. I mean, they haven't said as much, but they said in a statement, we expect Ashtyn to be on our team this year, which I can only read as we're taking the NCAA to court on this. Like, this is ridiculous. And I want to get your thoughts on this, Spencer. So I've had a lot of people in the comment section saying, what if Baylor just plays him? What if they just dress him? What if they just put him out there? I have a simple answer to it, but people are so sick of the NCAA, they're like, what if Baylor just does it? I think the simple answer is they lose the game 2-0 because they forfeit it. But what if Baylor just plays him? What if they just play him?
The risk is greater than the reward.
Probably. Losing a football game.
Yes, we have seen the NCAA vacate wins that we all watched happen. They said Reggie Bush until last summer couldn't have his Heisman Trophy, and they just pretended that he wasn't the Heisman Trophy winner or something like that, even though he was in the Nissan Heisman commercials for like the last decade and a half. Like, nope, you guys didn't see that. It didn't happen. So as unfortunate as it is that this situation has arisen, I don't think you say just play it, because what was the guy at North Carolina? I'm forgetting his name, the wide receiver who, again, the NCAA just yanked around and was playing with, you can play. No, you don't get a hardship waiver, even though he had like 2 or 3 family crises or tragedies, and they were like,
happened at Florida State recently too. A kid from Miami, I can't remember his name. I was talking to someone about it the other day. His grandmother was sick, so he moved closer to home, and they said, no, you can't play.
Yeah, we came super prepared for this segment, which is great on our part. But like the whole, I just don't know what they're accomplishing. Like, this is what makes me want to pull what little hair I keep on my head out of it, Cam. Like, I'm just like, who's better off? Why have you, the NCAA, made college football a better place? Unless we are missing a huge piece of information, which they just, won't divulge, right? Which is kind of a key part of making an accusation or levying a decision is, we have a reason for it. Like,
we're going to imagine if the justice system was like, we're going to send you to jail. I'm not telling you why. You don't need to know that.
Core foundation of the justice system, by the way, is when you get arrested, you are told why and what your rights are. They don't just say, we're taking it. Like, no, you have to go and say you are under arrest for this, that, and the other thing.
I need some habeas corpus from the NCAA here. This is not the Civil War. This is not Lincoln's presidency. I need me some habeas corpus here.
They have suspended it indefinitely, and they will not be telling us why or when or how or anything along those lines.
Athlete first. You're right.
You know what? I'm going to, for no reason in particular, just insert my own story of a similar nature here.
Your name's on the show. Your name's on the show.
That's true. And I'm the executive producer, which is cool. So the Big Ten last year denied my media credential for the Big Ten championship game. And you know, it happens. I call to ask why, and no one answered the phone for 3 days. And I'm like, wait. So you're just making decisions that affect people's lives significantly, and you're just not telling me, like, we don't have to.
I've felt that before, by the way. That exact thing. I get exactly where you're coming from.
Makes
like, you feel great, by the way.
It's like, can you at least give an explanation of what?
Even if
there was no
sucks,
rumor this was
even if it's a bad one. Can I have one?
So just something. Something that's bad is better than nothing, because at least it shows you're thinking or caring about the issue. We'll just then judge that you're not very smart about these sorts of situations. But bringing this back to Baylor football here, Cam, since this is a college football show, is the wide receiver room okay? Like, losing your second leading receiver from a year ago to most schools, I would say, that's a rather significant development.
Yeah, it's not ideal. I'll say that. And we want Ashtyn Hawkins to be playing for Baylor. That's the best version of Baylor. But all in all, I think they'll be able to survive. They just picked up Lewis Brown, the fourth, out of the transfer portal, out of Colorado State, who, based off his numbers, now he was playing in the Mountain West last year, but based off his numbers, he would have been the second leading receiver for Baylor in the 2024 season. I know it's not apples to apples. You also brought in this kid, Cole Wilson, out of Texas State, whose numbers were very similar to Ashtyn Hawkins when he was at, checks notes, Texas State. So you could be bringing in just another Ashtyn Hawkins here. And you've also got to remember, too, you've got one of the best returning quarterbacks in the country in Sawyer Robertson. You've got an all Big 12 number one receiver in Josh Cameron. You've got a terrific running game with maybe the two of the 3 or 4 best running backs in the conference in the same backfield. And you did also bring in Kobe Prentice from Alabama as your slot receiver out of the portal too. So they've done some work in the portal at that position. You've still got Sawyer Robertson. You've still got Jake Spavital as the OC. Like, you're doing pretty well there. But yes, the best version of Baylor for 2025 has Ashtyn Hawkins on the team.
Yeah, that's I think a common trend, that if you can have your second leading receiver from a year ago, it's a good thing. By the way,
and it could have changed a lot of things in the portal. I know they got some guys for wide receiver, but you could have been going after some bigger fish if you knew that he wasn't going to be eligible.
Exactly. And I mean, and he might have decided, well, then I'm going to test the NFL draft wire. Well, you can't do that. And he can't be an undrafted free agent. Like, he just loses next year. Just no options. He just has to, I don't know, get really good at EA College Football 25, I guess.
Hope you speak UFL, buddy. How do you like Canada this time of year?
Heard it's nice. Heard Canada's nice. People up there, very nice. They're very nice up there in Canada. By the way, what a sentence to be able to say. One of the best returning quarterbacks in the country, Sawyer Robertson. That's, by the way,
saying it, man.
Factually accurate, because this is the year of quarterback turnover in the Big Ten and the SEC. And I think really in the ACC too. Like, you have some good returners in the Big 12, but man, it is just the year of, the top quarterbacks are, you got Garrett Nussmeier coming back. All right, Drew Aller is back. Carson Beck's at Miami. That'll probably work out pretty well. And then you go down the list, you're like, I don't think we get outside the top 10 for returning quarterbacks and not say Sawyer Robertson, but that's where we're at, right?
Yeah, baby. Yes.
Yeah.
The year of Sawyer. And if you don't know, you will soon know. I think that's what Biggie said, right? If you don't know, you will soon know. Okay.
Now that we're wrapping, we are ending the segment immediately.
Potentially wrapping it up.
A pun. That's how we like to do it. Speaking of quarterbacks, the next great one is somewhere in the class of 2026. Which one is the best of them all. Brian Smith has his thoughts. First, this episode brought to you by Wayfair. The days are getting longer, the weather's warming up, and people are spending more time outside, which means it's the perfect time to refresh your outdoor space. Whether you're working with a big backyard or small balcony, Wayfair has everything you need to make it feel more like you. Wayfair's massive selection of outdoor essentials makes it easy to transform any space into your ideal summer setup. From comfy conversation sets to sleek dining tables and outdoor decor, they've got it all, and at prices that fit your budget. They've got a mix of styles. Wayfair makes it super easy to find pieces that match your vibe without spending a fortune, which is very important. Stay within your budget. Wayfair will help you do that and still give you stuff that looks great and works for your space. Shop a huge selection of outdoor furniture online. This summer, get outside with Wayfair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. The top uncommitted quarterback in 2026 is Ryder Lyons. He has a crystal ball to the Oregon Ducks, but certainly, there are some other potential suitors as well. Brian Smith from the Portal Podcast, longtime recruiting analyst here to discuss. Let's start with the latest on Lyons, Brian. This is probably, I think, in the summer, the biggest quarterback name that is still yet to come off the board. Seems like a lot of early commitments for big-time guys. I mean, Jared Curtis committing the first week of May. Feels like that's typically been a move that's happened in the June, July months. But with Ryder Lyons, do you think he winds up in Eugene, or do you think USC can kind of swing the momentum back in their favor?
I think Ole Miss, Michigan, and BYU should all be considered as well. This is, in my opinion, not a very easy one to figure out. Because he's a Mormon kid, because he's going to take a one-year mission, there are a lot of other things to look at with him. And everybody wants him, and they should. He's my number 2 quarterback for a reason. He's awesome. I don't think anybody should be considered an automatic lean, although Oregon – I was watching some clips yesterday. I saw his brother playing for USC. His brother's tight end there. Obviously, it's the in-state school, but he's a Northern California kid. Oregon, for the longest time, a lot of people thought that's where he was going. And then Jared Curtis, they seem to go after him more. Does that impact him? I don't know. But Ryder Lyons, I've got him ranked higher than Jared, but that's just me. So everybody's got their own opinion on it, but I don't know where he's going, and I don't think anybody should be considered a lean at this point.
Does he have a timeline or an approximate one on when he's expected to make a decision? Because that crystal ball from Wiltfong for him to go to Oregon came almost immediately after Jared Curtis picked Georgia. And, I mean, that just screams to me that, Wiltfong might have some intel with regards to, where Oregon's heads were at, which was, hey, we want Jared Curtis, but if not, it's full court press going after Ryder Lyons because they know they don't want to, let him wander elsewhere too much.
I haven't heard the date. He might have one, but it'll be this summer. He's a very sensible kid. He's not going to wait to the last minute. He knows how important it is for a quarterback to be in a class. He'll make it this summer.
Yeah, and he's not the only talented quarterback. Certainly, he does not have a commitment date per 24/7. But it's easy to see why he's one of the most highly sought after prospects. But he's certainly not the only one. Brian, so you put together a wonderful list of the top quarterbacks in the class of 2026, and number 1 being Keeson Henderson going to Houston. Let's just start with the craziness of that particular statement that, a 5-star quarterback and the number 1 guy on your board is going to the Houston Cougars. What do you like so much about Henderson that, you've got him number 1?
When we saw him last summer, all the different recruiting analysts at Future 50 in Bradenton, we all thought, because he played multiple spots, he could be the number 1 corner, the number 1 free safety, or the number 1 receiver. None of us were saying he's going to be the number 1 quarterback. But then in January, when he went to South Florida to play in Battle Miami, he was just on fire. And he's always had a strong arm and all that, but he's just taken a major step forward. And we're talking about probably the best pure athlete in the class, regardless of position. It's insane what his capabilities are. And I don't like using a whole lot of comparisons to NFL guys, but there's a certain one in Baltimore that he is just
That was who popped into my head.
Yeah, they're the same player. Like, he's further ahead than he was at this point. Just saying.
But same sort of athleticism as Lamar Jackson.
100%. Like it's that ridiculous. And Keyshawn knows that, but he's really level-headed. Like he's not an arrogant kid. He'll talk to anybody. He's very chill. And those are the kinds of players, especially at quarterback, that if you don't have that kind of personality, it usually doesn't go well long-term. He does. So he could be a baseball player, track athlete. It wouldn't make it any difference what sport it is. He could be dominant. He just loves football, and he wants to play quarterback. So Houston was the first one to go all in on him playing quarterback. Then after that Battle Miami tournament, Georgia wants him, and Florida wants him, and Florida State, LSU. Everybody saw the film. They're like, oh, okay, never mind. You can play quarterback. So there's still teams coming after him. But right now it looks like he's going to Houston, and I think it's cool. It'd be great for Houston and college football. I mean, I know you like talking about the Big 12 is underrated somewhat. It's great conversation, and he's cool with it. He doesn't mind resurrecting the program. So good for Keyshawn.
Yeah, and the interesting thing that you touch on there is the uniqueness of a 5-star quarterback going to any Big 12 school, quite frankly. You look at the other names on here. Faison Brandon going to Tennessee. Jared Curtis going to Georgia. Ryder Lyons, we'll see if he winds up at BYU. That'd be one of the biggest gets in the history of BYU football. But I want to also discuss Faison Brandon here because he's currently committed to Tennessee, has been for quite a while. I think they feel really good about him sticking with the Vols in the long run, Brian, because of the lack of effort they put into recruiting Jared Curtis, who would be my number one quarterback in the class of 2026. But Tennessee has had Brandon for so long, and they weren't even tied, sniffing around really with Jared Curtis, who's from Nashville. But they're all in on Brandon. Why do you think Josh Heupel wants him to be the next quarterback at Tennessee?
He would be the second best athlete, arguably, in the class of 2026. Like, he's another kid. You put him at receiver, I'd take him in a heartbeat. And I bet you Kirby Smart would take him at wide receiver or free safety. And another kid that's really gracious, open-ended, great interview, all those kinds of traits make him a fit at the University of Tennessee, too. And above all else, he is the guy that's going to embody the dual threat quarterback. He's about 198 pounds, 200 pounds. 6'3.5" when he was at Elite 11 this year, and he's got a cannon. So he hasn't had to use all his skills yet. I haven't seen it as much. Like when I was speaking with him, he had the conversation with me about like his area. Most of the kids, if you're good, you find your way to that high school where he's at, Grimsley, and they just kick the bejesus out of just about everybody. So he hasn't necessarily went against as much comp, but like when he's on the field, he's dominant. His upside might be even higher than Keyshawn's. He's a little bigger. Just depends on your perspective, but it's 6 one way, half dozen the other.
Yeah, and I also wanted to shout out the Big 12 a little bit because Jake Fett, 4-star quarterback for Arizona State, is number 12 here on your list. And, there are still 4 guys on here that are uncommitted for those listening on audio that can't see. You've got Ryder Lyons, Bo Bentley is your number 5, Landon Duckworth, your number 9 quarterback, and Luke Fahey. Luke Fahey, sorry, is number 11 there for your rankings, and those guys are all uncommitted. But for Arizona State and Houston to be in there for these guys, like, yeah, the Big 10 and SEC separate themselves from the Big 12, most notably in the trenches, but they get the big time quarterbacks too. Bryce Young didn't go to the Big 12; he went to the SEC, and that worked out pretty well overall. So, what do you make about what ASU has got cooking there?
I think last year's playoff run has changed the direction of their recruiting. I mean, let's be honest. They hit the inside straight on the portal last year. Scatterboo aside, they did really well with defensive players, offensive line. They just didn't miss much. But high school players still noticed that they were in the playoff. And now they're getting kids that they wouldn't have gotten a year ago. They wouldn't even got on campus. Spencer, it was slim pickings there for a while at ASU. They were awful. I mean, there's no nice way around it.
Did you know they had a recruiting class within the last 5 years that finished 103rd in the country? It stemmed from the Herm Edwards era and the sanctions and and all that stuff. 103rd in Tempe, Arizona. Brian, that sickens my stomach to hear.
It should, but they're back on track, and they've got a head coach who's young, who's a grad, who wants to be there. They should be the team that's the most consistent over the next decade because of what I just said in the Big 12. Will they? I don't know, because college football is so wild. And maybe the Cowboys call the head coach and make him an offer he can't refuse. You never know. But strange.
I think he likes it there a lot.
I do too.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you just never know in college football. I don't like anything more than about a 2-year projection.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really hard.
I'd say long-term, BYU's making big investments. Texas Tech, huge investments.
Yep.
ASU has got staying power. I mean, Kansas State feels really solid. They don't feel championship yet. I know they won it a couple of years ago of sorts, but like they feel good. You know, they feel like They feel like Oklahoma State in the Big 12. You know, that's how Kansas State feels to me. Is like always good, never like taking the step up to great, elite, top tier, but always good. Like as long as Chris Kleiman is there for Kansas State, I think they will be good. We're always good with Brian Smith, the Portal Podcasts, recruiting analyst, covering all things across the country. Check out the show on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time. And until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.